We are now onto the next tool, the rotate tool. So the rotate tool is right over there. If you don't see it, then maybe it's under another tool. You can just long press or right click and you'll get this other tool, whichever may be. So if you are last on the reflect tool, then you'll see it there by right clicking. Then you can also drag this whole thing out by pressing on this triangle, and you can move this window around. You can even put it onto there so you have it on its own, or you can change the positioning of it and all that stuff over there. You can just close it otherwise. Now what the rotate tool does is obviously rotates objects, but there's a lot more than that, because to rotate an object you can also do that with the regular selection tool. You can hover over any corner and just drag it and rotate it around, simply as that. You can press shift as well and you'll have it within 45 degrees. So the rotate has a few more options, like we'll see now. So as you press on this rotate tool, you can see straight away this small like cross icon thing appears in the center of the object. That is our axis. So the shape will rotate around that axis. So currently it's on the center. That means that if you drag, the object will rotate around its own center. So let's just try it. You can hold anywhere on the object. You can even hold outside the object. The further away you go, the more control you have, because if you're right nearby, you won't have so much control. And then you just hold down and drag in a circular way, and as you can see, you're just rotating the object very easily. If you hold down shift, you'll be able to move it within 45 degree angles. Now that's all to rotate around its own angle. How about if you want to rotate it around another angle, around the corner of this object, around anything else? So to change the axis, you'll press on it once, because if you just drag it, then obviously the shape will be rotated. So you just press on the axis once, or you can actually press anywhere on the screen once, I think. So you press once and then you drag your icon to anyway once. You can drag it to that top left corner, and once you rotate now, then you'll see it rotates around that corner. Or alternatively, you can just press anywhere, and as you can see, it appears anywhere where you pressed once. As you can see, it doesn't have to be on the object, so you can rotate it on another place or another area. If you want to put it back to the center, so you can drag it, sorry, you have to choose it first by selecting it once, then you drag it to the center, or you can just choose another tool and then choose that again, and then by default it will come back to the center. Now, so we've got here two objects, so let's just delete that one and create a small triangle. I'm pressing the arrow keys to change the amount of polygons it has. So say we've got this nice looking sun here. I can actually align both of them. There you go. And I want to rotate this triangle rays or whatever it may be around the sun in a nice way. And how do I make it around the center? If I choose this rotate tool, and like we said, you can press on it once and then you can move this thing, or just press anywhere else and then you can just select. So I put it there. How do I know that's the center? As you can see, this is not the center and it's not going to go around the same circle evenly. To get the center point, you can either choose Control or Command Y. That'll bring you in outline mode, and then you can see a center mark of each element. So you can simply press it down once over there, and that will take you to the center of that element, whatever it may be. Or I'm just pressing Control Command Y again to go out to, by the way, it's under View, Outline. Or to temporarily access this selection tool, you can hold down Control or Command, and you'll see the center tool. Now you can see the center mark while you're hovering over, and then you can put it over there. So you can choose any of those. So as you can see, I have this selected and I press down Control or Command, and now I see the center mark while I hover over this other element, and then I can press once when I leave go the Control or Command to get back to the rotator. Then I'll have that right in the center. So you can choose any of those ways, and then you just drag and it will rotate around the sun. So now once you rotate, so it left go that place and went to the new place. How do I get it to go around the circle? You can, while you drag, you hold down Alt or Option, and that will copy. You can see the arrow change there. That will copy it instead of just moving it, and now I've got them in both places. Then you can either carry on going that way, or make life a lot easier, you can press down Control or Command D. That'll repeat the action, and you can have this beautiful looking rays going right around the circle. Or otherwise under Object and Transform again, that's the same thing. You can see the shortcut there. But now as you can see that the spacing between these ones are equal, but this one has slightly more spacing. How do I get, and that's because I didn't measure the spacing of each one, while I just dragged out randomly, so it could be even worse. I'm doing Control Z to undo. So say I go to the center point there and I hold down Alt like that much, and then I do Control Command D to repeat. You can see here there's so much more space than these areas. How do I get the exact same amount of spacing? You can access all the tools options by pressing down Enter or double clicking on the rotator. That'll take you to the options of the rotator. So here's the angle. You can choose preview so you can see what we're doing there. So currently it's on that spot there. You can put here the angle of the object you want to move, or you can use the arrow keys and the keyboard up or down to move in one point at a time, one angle at a time, or with Shift to go up by 10. So as you can see, it's moving by 10 points at a time. Or you can also use this icon here and you can just move this along and you'll see it changes just like that, so it's easier to visualize it properly. Now the next options are for a pattern, so let's just create quickly a pattern. Just putting down here any pattern. Now you can do rotate for a pattern or any of that sort. You can double click on the rotator or just press down Enter anywhere. And then you'll have these two options available as well. You can choose transform object or transform pattern, or you can choose both. So currently I'm only transforming the pattern. It's similar to the transform panel that we learned in another lesson. You can check it out there. So here I'm transforming only the pattern. You can see it's making me dizzy. Or you can transform the object only without the pattern. So it's as if the pattern is like stuck there as a wallpaper and you're just moving this object across. And then you can choose copy. That will put both elements in the same place. So say I chose to do both, then I'm choosing copy, then you'll get two of those elements there. And that's just the same thing as pressing with the Alt, dragging. So to get back to our case, if we have this like sun thing or anything it actually could be, and we want to transform this triangle right around in an equal place so you wouldn't have like extra space anywhere. So if you double click on this tool or press Enter to get to this panel, as you can see, it will always only be in the center. Even if I put it there and I press Enter, it will jump to the center, this axis. So how do I get this axis to stay in the center of, let's say, this element there? The way to do that is by pressing Alt and then clicking there. Then you'll see that panel opening up and this axis stays in the same place where I wanted it to stay. Now I can choose to rotate this, and there's a cool way to do it exactly around with the even spacing. You can put in a whole equation over here. So you do 360, that's the degrees, divided by say 12. And then you choose copy. And you can press Control Command D to repeat that action. And as you can see, it does it perfectly with a beautiful spacing right around the whole thing, because it's divided by 360 instead of you doing it. Now I'll give you a tip. Instead of each time going to the rotate tool and rotating it from there, you can right click and go to transform and choose rotate, then you'll get that panel over there just as well. Or you can always go to object, choose transform and rotate from there. That'll take you to the same place. The only thing is that will always be only around the center, and you won't be able to do it like we demonstrated to make it on another axis. So say we've got loads of these little duckies here, and we select all of them and choose to rotate. Then this whole thing will work as one big element, so you can see the whole thing is rotating. But what about if I just want to rotate each one individually? So I could now go to each one, select it, choose rotate, and rotate the stack there, and go to the next one, etc. But thankfully there's a much easier way to do it. So you can select the whole thing, go to object, choose transform, and transform each. Here you'll have a whole big panel opening up. We won't go through the whole thing now, but you can choose here to rotate each one, and as you can see, it does it to each one individually, so that saves a lot of time. And now you've got them all rotated. Another cool thing is that you can actually rotate a single anchor point. So you can choose the direct selection tool, then choose the anchor point. So as you can see, this is the only one that's selected. Then you go to the rotate tool, and if you just rotate it, you wouldn't notice any difference because the anchor point is rotating around itself, but you can select the tool somewhere else so that it will rotate around this axis, and then you can rotate it, and then this anchor point will be rotated like that. So you can get some cool stuff with it. And another thing you can do, say we take off this line and downscale this, and we bring in a few elements. So I'm just going to give it a bit more of a stroke. Now we go to the rotate tool. So it's not a group, each one is differently. So this is the center of all these groups together. Then you can turn this and press down Alt so you can get a copy, and then press Control Command D, and you can get some very cool looking stuff here. You can try it out, it's actually quite cool, and each one is an object of its own, and it looks like one of these Mandela circles, I think. I don't know what it's called. That's a way to cheat how to do it. Instead of working hard for hours, you can just do that in like 5 seconds. Now another last tip I'll give you is, say you want to rotate an object, and just give this some nice color here. So let's go for this object. There is a much cooler way than using the rotate tool. You can go to effect and choose from there distort and transform. You'll have a whole window opening up. It's similar to the object, but an effect. You'll see the difference soon. So you can choose here just to rotate this object, and you can choose a copy. Make sure you have the preview there so you can see what you're doing. Then you can move it. Sorry, that's a scale. You can move it horizontally or vertically, and you can do a few copies so you can get like random effects and stuff over there. But the coolest thing is if you want to get it around another element, so say you want to get this in a round circle, you can choose here to have a small circle, and you can make sure that they both are aligned together. Now you'll need to group them both, so I'm using the shortcut Control Command G, because otherwise each one will have their own effect on it. And then you go to Effects, Distort and Transform. Now you can choose to transform this around there, and you can choose to add a copy. And say I move it to drop to give it some space. And you've got this object transformed. Now why I say it's so cool is because you can now change anything, and you won't have to change for everything. So say we take the direct selection tool. Now since it's in a group, you have to make sure you select it. then you move it up and you'll see the whole thing changes this just as well. So you can move it closer, you can move it away. Let's just put this in the center. You can change anything you want to any of the objects, and all the other ones will get the same effect. So that's what's very, very cool. You can change the color of it and they'll all change the same. And instead of you each time going and changing them all around once again, and you can just choose them both and go to the appearance panel. If you don't see it, you can go to Windows and choose appearance from there. Then you can always go to the transform and reset it there how you want. It will be printed, so even though it's only an effect, as you can see, if you press Ctrl Command Y to see the outlines, you can see there's only 2 objects. That's all there is here. Sorry, doing Ctrl Y again. If you want to expand it, you can go to, you have to select Object and choose Expand Appearance. That will turn each element into its own one. You can ungroup it there. So let's just recap. To use the reflect tool, you can just click on it and turn it. Naturally, it will go in the center of the object. If you want it to go anywhere else, you can just click anywhere else and then you'll turn it around any other element or any other point in the object. To open all the options, you can press Enter or double click on the tool panel. Otherwise, you can alt click anywhere you want to open this panel. And then, as we said, you can do the equation 360 divided by, with that slash there, divided by the amount you want to have it going around any other element, and then you would have it, you can press copy and then it'll go around it. You can also drag with Alt or Option and I'll copy it, and then you can press Ctrl Command D to repeat that same action. And there is another thing I forgot to mention, I think. You have here this transform panel. If you don't see it, you can go to Windows and choose transform. We spoke about the transform panel in length. You can check out the other video, but you can add here, you can add also the rotate, so you can choose how to rotate this object. Once again, it will only go around the center of the object, but you can choose it from there. Also, if you want to see which angle you're rotating around, then you can choose the info panel, Windows Info, and while you're rotating, you can see the rotate sign down there. You can see it how much at which angle it's rotating. So that's that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you gained anything, please give a like and subscribe, and don't forget to post any of your questions, comments, ideas, or anything you just want to share or add or let us know about at the comments below, and I'll be so pleased to see it. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video.